I'm going to be looking at this deconstruction of the text that I have created. So this is what I've written from my notes in my first drafts that I have done, and I've just put it all together. Now I just wanted to, before I go into other details, just point out some things that have been put into here to make it a good text. So this is an example of something that would be a good text to write. So we've got here at the top, we've got a title. So we've got the title there, and you might even notice that it's actually in bold. We've put the bold in because it's just makes it stand out a little bit more. And other things that we can also see that stand out is down here where we have some subtitles. So I'm just going to underline those, and we've got subtitles. So they're also in bold, and they're also in italics as well. So we've got bold, italics. So they're just things that we can see that is very important for our informative texts, so we know what we're talking about. And you'll also notice that in the whole thing there, we've got 5 paragraphs. So we can easily see that there are paragraphs. Ooh. Paragraphs. And I haven't even read the text yet, but just jumping out at us that these are the things that we can see. So those are very important for when we're writing an informative text, that we can see that very clearly, that we have our titles, subtitles, and paragraphs. So they're something that you must have when you're writing an informative text. So I've just got rid of those now, and so we can have a look at things just a little bit more clearer and a little bit more in depth. So this very first paragraph here is going to be our introduction. So I'll write intro just there. So we can see that's introduction. It's very broad. It's got some information, but it's not very specific. So we've got Ludwig van Beethoven was an influential musical composer and musician. He was born in 1770 in Germany. His father was a musician himself and wanted the same for his son. In fact, he wanted Ludwig to meet the famous composer Mozart. Now, I just wanted to really highlight a few things in this paragraph here. Now, we've been talking a lot about the Tier 2 and Tier 3 language. And 3 language. So we've got some Tier 2 language here. Influential. That is something that is that is an important word to use. And also we've got the word famous, and then so that's probably good. And then the Tier 3 language are our subject-specific languages. So I'm talking about a musical composer, so I'm just underlining those, and musician, so they're words. We've also got musician again, and then composer again as well. So those are words that we have used in there about our Tier 2 and Tier 3 language. So not only do we need our Tier 2 and Tier 3 language, which is a little bit smaller, we did look at the introduction as a whole, so that's this paragraph. So if we're looking at this at the sentence level, I have a different variety of sentences in here, and I also have something in here that I wanted you to see about the well punctuated, with the commas, the complex sentences with commas as punctuation. So the first sentence, Ludwig van Beethoven was an influential musical composer and musician. So that there is a simple sentence. It's got lots of words in it, but it's still a simple sentence because we're saying we've got our participant, Ludwig van Beethoven, and our process was an influential music composer and musician. So that's a simple sentence there. Now if we look at the second sentence, he was born in 1770 in Germany. Now you should notice there that I have a comma after 1770. Now I might not I might have written that sentence differently, and I may not have even used a comma. But the way that I've written it here, he was born in 1770 in Germany. So I had to put a comma there because they're two different things. So and it's part of the same sentence. So we're needing to make sure that we're separating those ideas there. Third sentence I have is a complex sentence. His father was a musician himself and wanted the same for his son. So sorry, did I say complex? I meant compound sentence. The father was a musician himself and wanted the same for his son. So we've got our joining word and there, our conjunction there. And that one's pretty straightforward. The last sentence, in fact, comma, he wanted Ludwig to meet the famous composer, comma, Mozart. So the first comma in that sentence, in fact, that little phrase there is just, it's like a coordinating phrase, I suppose you could say, that we are adding a bit of more information to it. I could have just written, he wanted Ludwig to meet the famous composer Mozart, but I wanted to add extra words to my sentence. And because it's an added extra, I am putting a comma after it to separate the clauses. Now my second comma in that sentence, before Mozart, the comma's there because it's actually indicating that there's words that have been missing. Because I could have written, in fact, he wanted Ludwig to meet the famous composer whose name was Mozart. And the comma there, I've omitted words because those words I don't really need. I don't need it to make my sentence, and it's, and if there's too many words, sometimes it gets a little bit crazy. So we have omitted those words, and I've put the comma there just so you know that Mozart is the famous composer I was talking about. So my comma is separating the clause, like the main clause. He wanted Ludwig to meet the famous composer, and instead of saying the famous composer whose name was Mozart, I placed the comma there. So it is a relative clause, Mozart. So Mozart, even though it's one word, is a relative clause, but we've just omitted whose name was. So I hope that makes sense. Commas are very important punctuation for your writing. On informative texts, you can use commas really well to be able to make more sense of your writing. So when you are writing, using add-on words, add-on phrases, add-on clauses, in fact, in addition, in conclusion, finally, firstly, secondly, thirdly, etc. Those different things. If you're going to add something to the start of your sentence, you probably would need, most likely you would need to have your comma there.